Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a story that feels like it's putting social media itself on trial.
We are diving into a huge trial happening right now in Los Angeles, where a jury is being asked that exact question. And believe me, the outcome here could totally change the internet for an entire generation.
Okay, so let's get right into it. This trial is a really big deal. It's basically a test case that could change the rules for how tech companies have to treat their youngest users.
Yeah, this isn't just a one-off lawsuit. It's what lawyers call a bellwether trial. Think of it like this. It's the first big domino. How the jury rules here, well, that's going to give everyone a hint about what might happen in the thousands, yes, thousands, of similar lawsuits waiting in the wings.
So who's actually in the courtroom for this thing? Well, you've got the plaintiff, a 20-year-old woman who's only being identified as KGM, and she's going up against some real heavyweights, Meta, the company behind Instagram, and Google, which of course owns YouTube. Now, what's interesting is that TikTok and Snap were also on the hook, but they decided to settle out of court. So for the ones left, the stakes are just incredibly high.
All right, let's break down the plaintiff's side of the story. What is the accusation here? What are they actually saying these tech giants did?
The plaintiff's lawyer, Mark Lanier, he came out swinging. His opening line was powerful and really set the tone. The argument is basically this: these companies didn't just stumble upon an addictive product. Nope, they claim these platforms were designed from the ground up to get kids hooked on purpose.
The whole case really hinges on the personal story of KGM. Her lawyers are painting a picture of a kid whose mental health took a nosedive after she got, in their words, addicted to these platforms. She started using this stuff really young. By the time she was done with elementary school, she'd already posted almost 300 videos on YouTube. The argument is that this wasn't just a kid having fun, it was a compulsion, and it came with a heavy price.
And that right there is the fundamental clash at the heart of this trial. Is a platform like Instagram what the company says it is, a way to connect, to build a community? Or is it something else entirely? Is it, as the lawsuit claims, like a drug, something intentionally designed to be addictive? So, you might be asking, how do you even prove something like that? Well, the plaintiff's team is being pretty clever about it. They're actually using the company's own internal documents against them. For instance, they brought up a meta-study called Project Mist. And what did it find? That kids who've been through trauma were more likely to get addicted, and, get this, that the parental controls the company offered didn't really do much to stop it.
But maybe the biggest bombshell came from inside Meta itself. The plaintiff's lawyers showed the jury an internal message, a communication where one employee just comes right out and says it. They describe their own company's role as being basically pushers. Wow, can you imagine being on a jury and hearing that?
Okay, but that's just one side of the story. The tech giants, as you can imagine, see things completely differently. So let's flip the script and look at how they're fighting back. YouTube's defense came out with a number. Just one number. 1 minute and 14 seconds. Their lawyers stood up and told the jury that was how much time KGM actually spent on average per day on YouTube Shorts. The very feature being called so addictive. It was a really smart move, right? A single statistic meant to poke a huge hole in this whole idea of an all-consuming addiction.
But they didn't stop there. They also went after the very foundation of the lawsuit. Lawyers for Meta basically argued that, scientifically speaking, social media addiction isn't even a settled thing. They told the jury there's huge disagreement among scientists about whether it's a real medical condition at all. Maybe, they suggested, we're just talking about someone who uses an app a lot, not a true addiction.
And then, the defense pulled out what they hoped would be a trump card. They played a video of one of KGM's own former therapists. And in that video, the therapist says that social media was not the through line of her problems. He was basically suggesting that her struggles came from other things going on in her life.
So, the defense's argument really boils down to this one question. Where's the proof? They hammered this point home. None of KGM's own doctors, they said, ever diagnosed her with social media addiction. They even highlighted that in her own sworn testimony, KGM herself said she wasn't addicted to YouTube. And to top it off, they pointed to 10,000 pages of her medical records, saying that diagnosis is nowhere to be found.
Now, to really get what's at stake here, we gotta zoom out a bit. Because this trial in LA, it is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. See, this case isn't happening in some legal bubble.
It is part of a huge nationwide wave of legal challenges. You've got over 40 state attorneys general suing Meta. You've got hundreds of school districts filing their own lawsuits. TikTok is dealing with a whole bunch of similar cases. The bottom line is the entire social media industry is basically under legal siege.
So with all of that swirling around, what does this all mean? What's really on the line for the future of the apps and websites we use every single day?
Well, remember how we called this a bellwether trial? That's because the verdict could set off a massive chain reaction. If the plaintiff wins, it could force these companies to totally rethink and redesign their products for kids. Not to mention, it would open the floodgates for thousands more lawsuits. But if the tech companies win, it could shut down this whole movement, stopping this wave of lawsuits right in its tracks.
When you get right down to it, this whole trial boils down to one really tough question with no simple answer. Who is responsible for keeping kids safe online? Is it the companies that build these incredibly powerful platforms? Is it up to parents to watch over their kids' shoulders? Or does the responsibility lie somewhere else? A jury in Los Angeles is about to give us their answer. And that answer could end up defining the digital world for a whole new generation.